Hello and welcome to Fandom Fridays. Well, you heard it here, folks. Today we're going to look at another fun ho ho ho. What was that? Merry Christmas! Is that? Yes, it is. Holy sweet Celestia on high and all of her sibling and all of her cuteness of her little sibling. It's Santa Claus! What are you doing here, Santa? Oh, I had heard about all the bad fanfic you were about to experience, and have decided to give you a present. After all, you've been spending this past 6 months doing so much with this fandom, doing so many voice work, reading so many fanfics, and spreading good fanfics and letting other people who haven't had that chance see them. I've decided to be nice, and since it is Christmas, to alleviate you the pain of having to sit through Von Doom's work. You mean it? Yes. And instead, you get to pick several different Christmas fanfics that you might want. Oh, and I can't forget Trixie.
Me? You're going to give me a present too?
Why, yes, little unicorn. I have just a gift for you. A pair of wings.
Oh, my gosh. Trixie can't believe it. Finally, a pair of wings, all her own, and... Drinking, drinking. What are these?
Styrofoam wings. You never specify, little unicorn. Ho, 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 ho!
Squeaky, squeaky. Well, Trixie supposes is a start. Continue on with the show, martial art fruit user. Trixie has a few complaints to write with the management. Thank you, Santa. Thank you so much for everything.
Ho, 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 ho! No. Thank you, little martial art fruit user, for keeping the faith as long as you have. You and the tick are truly the most type of people that some may say keeping the faith is insane. You prove them, well, not completely wrong, but still, you kept the faith even longer than any sane, rational people should. Well, I'm off to continue watching as the rest of the elves can continue their work. And maybe hopefully divide them up between the dwarves.
Wait, dwarves work up there too?
Why, you know, the North Pole is a portal right to Middle Earth. Ho 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 ho! It's just that some of the elves are there because they don't want to fight in wars.
Wow. That is so awesome. You heard it here first, folks. Santa Claus has a connection to Middle Earth. Wow. No wonder Tolkien knew how to write about him in all of his adventures. Absolutely nobody who listens to this channel is going to get that joke. Well, you heard the big red guy. Instead of having to sit through the worst, horrible fanfics I had to sit through for Fandom, we are going to instead enjoy the best holiday ever. That's right, Christmas! Much like the critic who only has 2 seasons, Christmas and FU wins Christmas, I only have 3 holidays in mind. Halloween. Why aren't you Christmas? And of course, Christmas. So, sit back and relax as we proceed here at the Treeberry Memorial Library, the holiday season section, decide to give all of you some Christmas cheer. Now, you might be wondering, but could you really find so many for a community? Silly viewer. Don't you know some of fanfiction's universal constants? One of these universal constants is, no matter what it is, no matter who the people are, even if they have spent only a myocum of screen time together, and sometimes even at that, even if they don't even know each other, they will and can be shipped. Yes. Anything will be shipped. This doesn't apply to Pony. Anything. Setsuna Umino, shipped. Sorry. Luna and Flash Sentry, shipped. Edward Elric and Nami from One Piece, shipped. I bet you even if you were to look into the ancient scrolls of Greece, back in the ancient times of civilization, millennia ago, you would find scrolls depicting a ship fic written by ancient shippers between Hercules and Orpheus. Oh, Hercules, thank you so much. Your love and compassion have helped me ease the pain of my beloved wife's death.
It's okay, Orpheus. I know all about losing a wife. Now come here. Come for some lovin'.
Considering rules about homosexuality in Greece, I wouldn't be surprised. The other universal constant is this. No matter the universe, no matter the rules, even if it makes no sense whatsoever because, Jesus wasn't born in that world, even if it makes no freaking sense, there will be a Christmas fic based off of it. Sonic having Christmas? Why not? Fallout? Sure. DBZ? Go ahead. Anything could have a Christmas fic. Any fandom. And, well, that's what we're going to explore today. Will some of these things be good? Will some of them be bad? Will some of them be funny? Will some of them be heartwarming? Will some of them be sad? Will some of them be cheerful? Will you be laughing your butt off in the aisles? Who cares? It's Christmas! I'm going to make you enjoy some holiday fun, and you are going to sit back, relax, grab a cup of eggnog, and listen to all of this. So, let us start, shall we? I wonder how Christmas is in Metroid. A Space Pirate Christmas by Silent Uriel. Dear Santa Claus, I've been a very bad space pirate this year. I shot 12 classmates during shooting practice and said some very nasty things about the hunter's mother. That being kept in mind, I made a list of items for what I want for Christmas. Please note the size and color of every item. Young Head Ripper stopped typing. I wasn't so sure what he wanted for Redmas this year. There were so many cool new things coming out. He decided to watch the commercials on the vid screen to get an idea what he wanted. On the vid screen, A Hideous Life was playing. It was one of Head Ripper's favorite holiday movies. After about 20 minutes, he had a relatively good idea of what the media thought he couldn't live a fulfilling life without. It was time to get back to work on his Redmas list. This year for Redmas, I want an Omega Pirate action figure, the new one with real phase-on glowing parts, an interdimensional cell phone, one of those Horizon ones, an interactive fin sphere with 5 control waves and the new Hunt the Hunter game, money, a lifetime supply of Blue Root candies, including all the kinds made by Helms. Henritter stopped again. He couldn't list any kinds of Blue Root candy Helms made. He decided it would be best to let Mr. Claus decide. In fact, it might be best to see what he came up with. And finally, anything else you might think I need. Helping your firstborn tastes good, Head Ripper.
Merry Redmas, everybody!
That's when Santa's came in and blew Head Ripper's head off.
Oh, boo, boo, boo.
Next, I think we've got something interesting. What fandom is it? Just you wait and see. A Christmas Carol by Panament. Wait. I need to start this fanfic right. Final music. You got it. Space. The final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission to explore strange new worlds and strange new civilizations. To boldly go where no man has gone before. Yeah, I know. That's the TNT opening music. Confidentially, the TNT opening music rocks more than the original series. It started out as an ordinary day on board the USS Enterprise. And by ordinary, we mean boring. True, it was the day before Christmas, and the bridge crew had previously been engaged in using simulated ornaments to decorate the simulated Christmas tree, and sampling some of the simulated holiday treats that the food replicators had been processing. Captain Kirk even managed to convince his first officer, the ever-logical Mr. Spock, to participate in some of the fun. But now all that was done, and everyone was back on duty, which basically meant they were boring their brains out on the bridge. Except for Spock and Kirk, that is. Spock was busy calculating something, like the ratio of how many oxygen molecules to carbon dioxide molecules were currently floating around the room. And as for Kirk, he was too busy being scared to be bored. Kirk remembered all too well what had happened this time last year. The crew had been bored, just like they were now. But then McCoy, the ship's medical officer, came up with the idea to have the bridge crew put on their own protection of the Nutcracker suite. And, as everyone on the ship knew, that had turned out to be about as good an idea as the one Scotty had about the Tribbles. Ugh. And the worst part was that Scotty had actually recorded that Christmas disaster and had managed to sell several discs to the crew before being caught by Kirk. Okay, I'm just seeing that image in my head, and it's hilarious. Scotty had spent the next few weeks sending death threats to Kirk for taking away his precious engineering manuals and maybe some of the whiskey. You asked for it. Kirk had replied to each and every one. So now, here they were again, bored on the bridge the day before Christmas. Sulu and Chekhov on the consoles, Uhura and Spock at their separate stations, and McCoy standing to the left of Kirk's chair. Kirk knew it was only a matter of time before McCoy came up with another idea. Sure enough, no more than 5 minutes later.
Hey, now here's a thought.
Phones began in a slow, deliberate tone.
Remember last year when we put on that Christmas play for the rest of the crew?
Unfortunately, grumbled Kirk. So do. Uhura replied in a much more enthusiastic voice. That was the most fun I had all year. Except when I got pushed out of the chair, that is.
Oh, I was thinking, the good doctor continued, maybe we could do something like that again this year. The crew really seemed to enjoy it, and I know I had a great time. What do you think, Jim?
Kirk glared at McCoy. He knew he was being teased about what happened in last year's play, and he didn't like it. Go ahead, then, Kirk said. Good luck. Break a leg and all that other stuff. Just don't expect me to have any part of it. Everyone on the bridge, except Spock, turned to groan in protest, trying to get their captain into holiday spirit. But Kirk would have none of it. He merely stomped off to his quarters, leaving Spock in charge of the comm. About 15 minutes later, Kirk was pacing around his room, trying to convince himself that he was safe. He was the captain, after all. When he said things, people listened to them. No more than 10 minutes after he had this first thought, Kirk realized that someone was outside the doors to his quarters, waiting for permission to enter. Kirk granted permission, but was instantly suspicious when a very nervous Ensign Chekhov entered the room. Good day, Ensign, Kirk greeted, somewhat brusquely. How's your play coming along? Very good, sir, Chekhov replied. We've decided to do a new version of an older lesson favorite. Why does this not surprise me? All right, what is it? Asked Kirk. Christmas killer, sir. Kirk blinked. He promptly decided that it was no use to correcting the navigator. He had already made up his mind that everything of use had been invented in his native Russia, even if it had actually been discovered on a completely different planet 10 quadrillion light years away that never even heard of Russia. Well, good luck then, Kirk said dismissively, hoping he would end the conversation. It didn't. Well, sir, we are having a little problem with casting. What kind of a little problem? Chekhov cleared his throat and took a deep breath and then explained, Well, sir, we have Lieutenant Uhura as the Ghost of Christmas past, Mr. Scott as the Ghost of Christmas present, and Dustin McCoy as the Ghost of Christmas yet to come. Sounds like a good cast so far. What's the problem? Taking another breath, Chekhov went on. And Sulu is playing Bob Cratchit, Nurse Chapel is playing Mrs. Cratchit, and I am playing Tiny Tim Cratchit. I'm sorry, this live reader has shut down for a moment. Loading. Loading. There. I'm back to action. Still sounds good. What is the problem? Ignoring Kirk once again, Chekhov flat on. Literally is to be the Chekhov. Kirk ground off. What is the problem? Sighing a little, the young ensign finally blurted out, We don't have anyone to play Mr. Scrooge. It took Kirk only a few milliseconds to figure out what Chekhov was saying. Oh no. Oh no, you don't. No. No! The captain ran. I absolutely refuse! Lassa! No, you don't you understand English! Kirk screamed.
Sounding desperate. No, net! Absolutely never! And you could quote me on that! Is that understood? Answer! Chekhov just nodded, looking a little hurt and a lot stunned, and strode out the room with as much dignity as he could muster. Who's Spock playing? Me, asked Scrooge. Ha! The nerve of some people. Kirk grumbled, then let out a yawn, and decided it was about time for him to go to bed. If he was lucky, the crew would have forgotten about their planned Christmas play by morning. Kirk's head hit the pillow when a loud boom filled the room, prompting the startled captain to sit up in his bed. It had sounded like thunder, but since there is no thunder in deep space, Kirk knew there was something amiss. Suddenly, a brilliant light shone in Kirk's eyes, and he was forced to cover them to protect himself from being blinded for life. But, trying to act like the brave captain he was, he eventually opened them just a crack. He was not prepared for what he saw. "Mom!" he cried, startled. What are you doing here?"
Jimmy.
Mrs. Kirk escaped jovially. She threw herself at Kirk, flinging her arms around his neck and planting wet mom kisses all over his face. "Mom! Mom!" Kirk mumbled, confused and very, very embarrassed.
"Oh, I am so happy to see you,"
she continued. That was when another crack of thunder was heard. The silver-haired woman simply straightened up, smoothed her flowing white dress, put on a stern expression on a wrinkled face, and said in a strict tone,
"I am here to help you, Jimmy."
"To help me? Do what?"
"To quit acting like a jerk, that's what. The way you are acting, you are starting to give the family a bad name."
"I am," asked Kirk, shocked equivalent tone. "But what about all those planets I saved? Doesn't that count for anything?"
Mrs. Kirk shook her head sadly. "How could I have raised such a son?" she sniffled. "Yes, you've saved many planets, but it's your attitude we are worried about."
"We," Kirk said hesitantly.
"We, me, the man upstairs, we."
Kirk swallowed noisily, trying to hide his growing nervousness. Somehow, all this sounded vaguely familiar, and he had his feeling he wasn't going to like how it ended up. Kirk's mother held out a glowing hand and instructed her son to take it. Hesitantly, Kirk did so. Suddenly felt like he were using a transport beam to down some random planet. How his mother had managed to do that was beyond all comprehension. After the transporting session ended, Kirk found himself at, well, I think you can guess. "Hey! Don't bring in the fourth wall, Fic! That's my job!"
"My old elementary school!"
Kirk exclaimed. "Oh, I thought they tore it down years ago. I am glad I was wrong."
"You aren't wrong. They did tear it down, right after you graduated. I guess after seeing the way you turned out, they figured it was too much of a risk to keep the school going."
"Hey, are you sure you're my mom? You are acting pretty nasty right now," Kirk put in. He was almost immediately given a slap on the cheek and told never to speak to his mother that way again.
"And after all I did for you,"
she said tearfully.
"Yep, you're my mother, all right."
Why do I think that this is not Kirk's mom? Why, dear reader, what could you ever possibly mean? Discord! Oh, wait, it's just Q. Oh, for a minute there, I thought you were... Wait a minute, you're just as bad! Who says I'm not both? Maybe in one universe I'm Q, and the next I'm Discord. Have you ever tried to figure that one out? No, and frankly, I don't want to. Slowly, the red-faced starship captain took a look around. They were in the auditorium, and many parents have already filled into the space's room. The purplish curtain was wiggling furiously, indicating that there were quite a few children behind it, preparing for whatever they were about to do. "What's going on here?" Kirk asked, after a few minutes and nothing happened. "And did that kid just throw a lollipop through your arm?"
"And I thought you read that book back at high school for English class."
Mrs. Kirk sighed, sounding even more disappointed than before.
"Don't you remember? These are but shadows of things that have been. They have no consciousness of us. And I am a ghost of Christmas past. Ghost as in non-existent."
"Okay, I know I've heard that somewhere before. Some of it, anyway." Before they could continue with the conversation, a stern gentleman with silver hair appeared on the stage as if by magic. "There's Principal Smiler," Kirk exclaimed. "Boy, was he ever the grouch. All the kids hated him and used to replace his coffee with black paint. Are we here to help him too?"
"No, he's been dead for years. He's beyond help."
Mrs. Kirk responded impatiently. "Now, watch quietly, or I'll send you to bed without your supper." Kirk tried not to sigh, but obeyed his mother nonetheless.
"Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to our third annual Christmas play.
The smiling Smiler greeted.
The children have worked very hard for this past month to bring this play to you, and I'm sure you will enjoy the version of A Christmas Carol.
Kirk paled considerably as he remembered two things. One, what the Brisk crew was planning for the holiday season, and two, who had been chosen to play the lead in the play that year. Even the audience clapped. Kirk whispered, "Oh, Mom, is this really, really necessary? I mean, couldn't we just visit some other Christmas play?" "No. Now watch before I tell your father what a naughty boy you're being." Kirk knew he was a little too old for the kinds of punishments his mother was intimidating with him, but after years of instantly snapping to attention at those kind of threats, he decided it would be his best interest to listen to her.
"You're not disproving my Q theory, Vic!"
Slowly the curtain parted. A crudely made little desk sat in the center of the stage, with a new recruiter scenery behind it. And there, at the desk, sat a little boy of about 10 in a gray wig and 19th century clothing. I don't think you really need all three guesses to figure out who it was.
Hey! What did I say about fourth wall breaking? You do that again, and I'm making you sit in the corner with the vendor!
"Oh, you look so cute, Scrooge," Kirk's mother cooed. "I looked ridiculous," Captain Kirk disagreed. "Oh, shush, shush, shush. Here comes you, first line." Kirk rolled his eyes. But watch as another kid, dressed as Scrooge's nephew, strolled on the stage and cried out, "A Merry Christmas, Uncle, and God save you." Then was the Kirk's embarrassment. The little Kirk replied with a high-pitched, "Bah, humbug!" "Oh, you were so cute back then," Mrs. Kirk commented heavily. Kirk sighed, tried not to look embarrassed, and continued to watch the play without much interest. "Christmas a humbug, Uncle?" the other kid continued. "You don't mean that, I am sure." And so it went for the next hour or so, until they finally came to an intermission. Kirk took colossal relief. Watching his 10-year-old self was more humiliating than he ever could have imagined. At least now he had a good 15 minutes to think of a way to escape. Much to his horror, his mother waved her hand over the entire scene. Not only was the intermission over in an instant, but now they were at the part of the play where Scrooge approaches his headstone. Kirk, having had enough of being humiliated, attempted to slink out the door. "James Tiberius!" snapped the mother. With another gulp, Kirk hastily slinked back and hung his head shamefully as he apologized. Then he turned back to the unfolding scene before them. "Before I draw nearer to that stone which you point," little Kirk said, "answer me one question. Are these the shadows of things that will be, or are they the shadows of things that may be only?" The kid in the cloak, who was playing the Christmas yet to come, simply pointed at a nearby headstone. It was obviously a fake one, but little Kirk approached it with as much trepidation and fear as he went. "I was so good, wasn't I?" "Just watch, Jimmy." Kirk turned back to the stage, where little Kirk was about to wipe the snow from the headstone. But as the little boy knelt, the fake stone wobbled and fell over backwards with a loud thunk. Several people in the audience snickered, and little Kirk turned slightly red as big Kirk turned very red. The little Kirk on the stage hurriedly tried to set the stone right, but only ended up making things worse. Eventually, he jerked it such a way that his wig fell off. The audience laughed a little more. Little Kirk tried to run off the stage, but ended up crashing into the other kid. Both went down. The other kid promptly used his costume to beat little Kirk over the head for ruining the play. The entire audience was roaring with laughter for a time, but all little Kirk could do was cry. Sorry, that was a mistake. Little Kirk was too busy trying to avoid the blows to cry. It was Big Kirk who was doing the crying. Captain Kirk don't cry. He makes other aliens cry. That was the most humiliating day of my life. Was this really necessary? He said with a little sniffle. Was it absolutely mandatory to humiliate me like this? Yes, I was afraid you'd say that. I'm sorry, Jimmy. I really, Mrs. Kirk said sincerely, but I had to do this. It helps you to understand why you didn't want to be in Crew's play, and why you were so nasty to the poor Pasha earlier. All he wanted to do was to get you in the spirit. Poor who? Chekhov. Oh, he wouldn't have anything to do with sending you here to embarrass me, would he? That I cannot say, replied Kirk's mother. That you must learn for the next ghost. Next ghost? Who's this time, Dad? No, he was too busy dealing with somebody else. Too busy for me? Impossible! Mrs. Kirk sighed. Hopefully, you'll learn more from the next ghost than you'll seem to have learned from me. Goodbye, Jimmy, and don't forget to eat all your vegetables. No! Take me back to my ship! Kirk exclaimed. I don't want to see you anymore! Please! Molly! But she had already famished, and Kirk suddenly found himself in a room all alone on his course on board the Enterprise. Kia, meanwhile, is taking video footage of this for all it's worth. And loving it! Kirk blinked and glanced around a bit, making sure that it really was his room. Upon finding nothing out of the ordinary, he decided he had been having a bad dream. Then, he decided to go back to sleep. But the second his head hit the pillow, someone happened to tap him on the shoulder. Kirk groaned and pulled the covers over his head, muttering something like, "Oh, go away." Unfortunately for him, somebody took the opportunity to yank the blankets off his bed, dumped them unceremoniously onto the floor. Kirk shivered and felt around for the blankets. When he couldn't find them, he had no choice but to sit up and gaze into the eyes of his second visitor. If he was shocked to see his mother, imagine his surprise when he saw... Me! Kirk gasped and wondered. You're me.
Well, I'm not the Tooth Fairy, that's for sure.
The other Kirk smiled. But you look so much older than I do. Am I really going to look like that when I get older?
Hey, it happens. It's called life, Junior.
Kirk, the real one, sighed inwardly and prayed that he wouldn't really look like that 20 years from now. Hey, Trixie, I think we finally found a place that's overloading your ego. Trixie can't believe it. It's magnificent! Hello, he answered certainly.
So you're, the ghost of Christmas present? Something like that.
Responded the ghost.
Are you going to transform me to another embarrassing part of my life now? I don't know. The ghost said with a shrug. You might be embarrassed if you got a heart, but judging from the way I'm here in the first place, I don't think you need to worry about that quite yet.
Kirk sighed again and hauled himself out of the bed.
All right, well, let's get this over with. Kirk sighed. Good. Now, grab a hold of my suspender here. Why? Just do it. Are you sure you watched that thing?
Thunder boomed ominously overhead, and Kirk let out an almost inaudible whimper. But just as the ghost had asked him to, in less than a second, the pair had been transported out of Kirk's quarters into one of the ship's rec rooms. The place was buzzing with activity. Most of the bridge crew, excluding himself, was present, and Kirk instantly knew that they were working on their Christmas play.
Now, doesn't this look like fun?
The ghost assertively.
Looks and is are two different things.
Kirk replied sourly. Then his expression softened slightly, and he said quietly,
But it does look like fun.
The instant Kirk said this, there was a loud crash from behind. Kirk rolled around to see that some random ladder had accidentally tripped one far to the side. The man on top of the ladder, McCoy, had managed to leap onto the Christmas tree and hang on to it to keep himself from plummeting to the ground. So now he hung like an ornament from the higher branches. He could be heard cussing around all the way down the hall. Unfortunately, there had been someone else nearby when the ladder chose to fall, and that person hadn't quite got out of the way in time. As if you hadn't figured it out yet, that unlucky officer happened to be Chekhov, who instantly went down with a loud cry.
Fun. Right. What was I thinking?
Kirk muttered to himself. But even though he knew no one was aware of presence, he chose to rush forward to the scene of the accident to see if Chekhov was all right. Force of habit, you know. What did I... Okay, that's it. That's it, Fick. Into the car with the fender. I swear.
Are you all right, Pavel?
Asked worriedly. No. What's the blunt and very penetrating response?
I think my leg is broken. Oh, well, that is just fine, Scotty ranted. Our navigator has a busted leg. Meanwhile, where's the best doctor on the ship? He's busy looking on the expression of a Christmas ornament. I'm working on it, you...
Bones yelled back. Then he added to himself,
I'm a doctor, not a piece of tinsel.
And take that off the list of things I've always wanted to say in a live read. As the ghost and Captain Kirk looked on, Scotty and Spock, yes, Spock was there too, were busy lifting the ladder off of Chekhov's leg. Nurse Chapel grabbed her ever-present hypo and was preparing to look at the injured limb.
Chekhov always did have a knack for getting into trouble,
Kirk commented.
Guess this means he won't be able to do the play. Of course he will, answered the ghost. He's playing Tiny Tim, remember? The one with the crutch? I thought you read that book in high school. Oh, please, let us not go through that again.
Meanwhile, Chapel had finished her examination and declared Chekhov's leg officially broken. There were general choruses of oh no's and sympathetic noises. Even Kirk added his poor kid to the mix as McCoy finally got himself down to ground level. He instantly took charge of the situation by picking Chekhov off the floor and helping him to his sickbay. The ghost waved his hand, and Kirk soon found himself in sickbay. As usual, Chekhov was lying on the bio beds, while McCoy and Chapel tended to his most recent injury.
There, all set,
McCoy announced, seemingly pleased with his work.
How do you feel now, Chekhov?
Painful.
Yeah, well, I just don't understand.
The doctor quickly changed the subject.
That ladder was perfectly stable. What caused it to fall?
Yeah, that was my fault, sir. Chekhov admitted sheepishly. I wish to see the captain about being screwed to the play. You didn't, Chapel gasped. I did, added the navigator. He turned me down. Was very mean about it, too. But, I mean...
Don't worry. We won't tell Tim what you just said.
Bones assured the suddenly pale young ensign. Traitor! Kirk yelled at his CMO. Dirty, lousy traitor! I wasn't rude about it. Was I? He added uncertainly, turning to the ghost. When he got a rapid nod as a response, Kirk really was he and asked, Anyway, Chekhov was saying, you yelled at me, and I just wanted to get away from here as fast as I could, so I didn't bother to look where I was going, and...
Never mind, I can guess the rest.
Tim McCoy gave the younger man a pound on the shoulder, and told him that he was ready to go.
Just don't try to climb or anything, and you should be all right. You know how to use a crutch, don't you?
Sadly, yes.
Good, because you'll be needing it for at least 3 weeks.
Merry Christmas, Chekhov grumbled. Chekhov was still standing up when unexpectedly he let out a yard shout of pain. Next thing Kirk knew, his best navigator was lying back on the bio bed, clutching his midsection as McCoy hastily scanned the area.
Internal injuries,
McCoy muttered. Not bad, I hope, Kirk asked. Only blatantly remembered that his question would not be answered. Not directly, at least. But directly or indirectly, Kirk never got an answer to his words. The ghost waved his hand once again, but this time didn't even leave the room. However, time had obviously passed, since only one in the room now were McCoy, Chekhov, Kirk, and the ghost. Even to someone who was completely unfamiliar with medicine, it was obvious that Chekhov was not doing well at all. What's wrong with him? Kirk asked. How do I know? I'm dead. Thank you, was the sarcastic reply. Well, you wouldn't be in this mess if you had been a little nicer to him, hinted the ghost. Kirk opened his mouth to retort, but nothing came out, so he just said it again. What was he supposed to say to that? The ghost had a point. Everyone on board knew how shy and impressible their newest ensign was. No matter how terrified Kirk was, he was supposed to show a good example to his officers, especially the young ones. Beginning to feel embarrassed, the ghost inquired. Kirk gave him a rotten look, but refused to admit that he was feeling pretty awful right about then. Ever so slowly, Kirk approached the navigator. His vital signs were beginning to slip lower and lower down the screen, in spite of all the doctor's efforts to get them up again. The captain was about to reach out and touch Chekhov's unmoving fingers when the door switched open. Sulu, Kirk murmured. Should have known he'd come.
How's he doing?
Were the first words out of Sulu's mouth. Dr. McCoy just shook his head sadly and went back to help his patient.
Look,
the helmsman started again. I know we were all looking forward to putting on that play, especially Pavel, but I don't think,
I agree, McCoy said quietly. Sure, do it now.
No! Sulu and McCoy glanced down at the patient, who had just muttered a weak cry. No, go on with the play, Chekhov said hauntingly. It took a moment to cough. Then I want you. Kirk was surprised when he had to swallow the lump in his throat. Captains never cry, after all. But nonetheless, a tear came dangerously close to rolling down his cheek, as Sulu nodded his consent. He gave his friend's shoulder a little squeeze, and left the room as fast as he could. Hey, Ghost, Kirk piped up, trying not to sound like he cared too much. Chekhov is going to be okay, isn't he? I see a vacant seat near the right of your command, sir, and a console without an operator, carefully preserved. If those shadows remain unaltered by the future, the boy will die. The ghost told Kirk forlornly. Die! Kirk yelled incredulously. He can't die! He's the best navigator in the fleet! And besides that, you feel guilty. And if he dies, you won't be able to stand it, right? Kirk looked over the bio bed, where Chekhov had lapsed back into a state of semi-consciousness, and tossing relentlessly. With a little sigh, the captain emitted a nearly inaudible tone. Kirk didn't notice when the ghost smiled almost incredulously, and then, with a wave of the ghost's hand, Kirk found himself back in his quarters once again. But this time, Kirk didn't even bother to go back to sleep. He may not have remembered much about A Christmas Carol, but he did know this. There were 3 ghosts, and so far he had only been visited by 2. That meant there was only 1 more left. Sure enough, no more than 20 seconds later, Kirk heard a loud, maniacal laughter coming from the foot of his bed. He jumped back into a fighting stance, ready to fight and protect himself, and his ship, of course. But all that was visible was a large cloud of black smoke. Kirk wasn't sure, but he was pretty sure that black was not a good sign. Eventually, the smoke cleared, and all that stood was a hooded figure with a long, dirty white cloak. When Kirk asked the visitor to identify himself, the figure pulled back his hood, and there stood... Wow, this is a great Christmas present. Thank you, fanfic. No. Thank you, world.
Con!
He shouted. How did you get on my ship? You better leave before I call security.
Oh, what? You kidding me. That's enough.
Conrad replied with a sneer.
I did remember. Thanks a lot, Captain.
Dead, Kirk repeated, confused. I never killed you. I left you on some completely lifeless dustbowl of a planet, remember?
Right. You haven't done that yet, have you?
Stalking to the other room, Khan grumbled.
I can't believe I'm even having this conversation.
You still haven't explained to me what you're doing here. Oh, don't tell me you're the ghost of Christmas yet to come, Kirk exclaimed. Just don't!
Yeah.
I asked you not to tell me that! Khan sighed as his former, and possibly current, adversary continued to protest his presence. But why? You're evil. What are you here, of all people?
That's a missed chance to make you feel like the dirty, rotten murderer you are.
Never! Khan countered. But now it was Kirk's turn to sigh. But when Khan offered a bit of his robe to touch, Kirk did so, fairly hesitantly, mind you. But touch it he did, and it took him no more than a second to arrive in the rec room. The first thing Kirk noticed when they got there was that he himself was nowhere in sight. Judging by the rest of the bridge crew there, Captain Kirk should be at one of the tables, watching McCoy and Spock arguing about something completely unrelated to anything. That was the second thing Kirk noticed. McCoy and Spock were not arguing about anything at all. They just sat silently at their usual table, not saying a word. That fact in itself was enough to give Kirk the shivers. He was just about to ask Khan why nobody seemed happy that day, when something else came to his attention. Chekhov was not present. Usually, the ship's navigator was sitting with Sulu and Aurora, who were really only real friends he was able to make during his stay. But this time, the pair sat by themselves, with the latter looking as he had been crying very recently. Not Ensign Chekhov! Kirk exclaimed in despair.
You think?
Oh, shut up! Kirk slowly went forward, leaving a slightly irritated Khan behind him. As he got closer to the crew tables, he began to pick up what was being said by his crew. I just don't understand it, Uhura said tearfully. Why him? Why now? Just before Christmas, too. He was looking so forward to it. So happy. Sulu switched over and placed a reassuring hand on Aurora's arm. Neither said anything, both thinking about the loss of their young friend. Meanwhile, at another table,
I lost him,
McCoy said dully, as if in a trance.
I can't believe I lost him.
You did your best, Doctor. There was nothing more you could have done.
Spock insisted. If you could call it that.
Then why do I feel like it's my fault? You did everything you could, Lottie!
Scotty insisted.
Yeah.
But McCoy didn't really sound as if he believed it. Kirk wasn't surprised. Bones always got so personal with his patients, and always took it very hard when he lost one. Not that he lost patients very often, but I suppose that's the fact that made it a bit harder to let go of the few he couldn't save.
Well, feeling like a rat yet?
Khan interrupted abruptly. Ignoring the rather inelegant terminology, the captain asked, Must things turn out this way? Chekhov never decided to die like that. Okay, well, he is a bit of a pest sometimes, but even so!
Hey, I didn't kill him. You did. Darn it.
Kirk glowered at him, but decided it was his best interest not to say anything back. After all, Kirk was alive, Khan was dead, and what could you do to a dead guy anyway? Tee! Well, I've got a few ideas. Need both a proton pack and a ghost trap. Isn't there Anyway, Kirk started, almost desperately, I mean, with Chekhov gone, I just wouldn't be able to live with myself.
You don't have to. Ugh.
With a wave of his hand, was suspiciously like he was trying to press Kirk in the stomach, Khan took them both to a little spot on some random planet Kirk had never seen before, and hoped to never see again. For some odd reason, it gave him the creeps. May I ask what we're doing here?
Would you like to know?
Khan countered. A few moments later, he laughed at Phyllis's laugh and added,
I have been waiting for this moment for years.
Now I know I'm not going to like this, Kirk sighed. As they kept walking, a feeling of dread settled itself in Kirk's stomach, and the farther they went, the worse feeling he got, until finally,
Well, there you have it,
Khan announced, sounding a little too happy for Kirk's own good.
take a look.
With much interpretation, the captain of the Enterprise slowly inched his way forward to the place Khan had indicated. It appeared to be a grave of some kind. A simple grave. Not the kind of shrine Kirk always dreamed of having when, I mean, if he passed on. But as he got close enough to read what was on the tombstone, he realized with a jolt his own name was engraved on it. You mean I'm going to die? He cried in a panic.
Well, you don't usually bury people who are still alive, do you? Although in your case, I would be more than happy to make an exception,
was Khan's reply. Well, I died bravely in some sort of fight, I'm sure. What do you mean, no? Indeed, Khan was shaking his head back and forth, indicating that Kirk's fate had not quite been that heroic.
You see down there?
Khan inquired, pointing downward. Kirk went out to the edge of the cliff and saw a bunch of rocky-looking rocks below. Yes, he answered hesitantly.
Now, see over there.
Kirk shifted his gaze over to a nearby bridge. So, what exactly is all this leading up to?
You mean you can't figure that out?
Khan yelled, sounding as if it was the most obvious thing in the world.
Hello? Please, big pointy rocks below. Are you even paying attention here?
Then, without waiting for Kirk to hazard a guess, Khan plowed on eagerly.
You fell off a bridge to a very ungallant death on the base of this mountain.
What? No! Kirk cried. Khan just laughed as the sergeant captain did something he never thought he'd do. He dropped to his knees and begged, No, I can't die like that. I just can't. Please, no, I will begin to play, and I will stop thinking of only myself. Just don't let me die like that. No! Khan just laughed and laughed and laughed. Kirk suddenly sat bolt upright, sweating bullets. Breathing hard, Kirk took a good look around his room. No one was there. No cracks of thunder. No black smoke. No suspenders. Nothing. Had he dreamt the whole thing? I'm alive, he whispered to himself. Then, with more confidence, I'm alive! Yippee! People, I will pay you money to have William Shatner as Scrooge and put him there. Just have him say this line. I will do. Besides, wouldn't be the first time a Starfleet captain was Scrooge, is it? Look it up. After dancing around on his bed for a minute, he suddenly remembered he was not the only one who had died the night before. He looked out of his bed and, without even bothering to get dressed, raced down the corridors as fast as he could. He had to see McCoy. He had to see Chekhov. He received many strange looks as he rushed down the seemingly large percentage of his 430 crew members. I mean, it's not every day that you see your captain dancing down the halls in nothing but his pajamas. Unless, of course, he was entertaining as a girl or Carol Marcus had showed up. And as to what his pajamas are, well, we'll leave that to the reader imagination. Back to your corner! After what seemed like an eternity, Kirk found himself in the sick bay. And sure enough, just like in his dream, McCoy and Lieutenant Sulu were tending to an unconscious Chekhov. But to Kirk, Chekhov looked quite dead. So when McCoy moved the blankets a little closer to the navigator's head, No! Don't! Shouted Kirk. The two turned to give him rather strange looks. Even more so when they saw that the captain wasn't wearing. The manliness of Kirk's naked body is enough to shun all men. Apparently, Kirk's yell had awakened the patient, for Chekhov was soon sitting up on the bile bed, looking extremely drowsy, and like he hadn't combed his hair since last Christmas. But all that mattered to Kirk was that Chekhov was looking extremely alive. He wasn't dead. Joy to the world! And considering that this is Chekhov, I'm happy. Ensign Chekhov! The captain exclaimed.
Jim, please!
The bone says.
He doesn't need a lecture right now. Whatever you think he's done.
Me? Lecture Ensign Chekhov? Never! By now, Sulu was quite tempted to turn Chekhov and start making circular motions around his ear, if only to make his friend laugh a little. What was the matter with Captain Kirk today, anyway? Maybe he was finally starting to get into the spirit of things.
He should have done that yesterday,
Sulu thought, feeling more than a myth.
Then maybe Pavel would still be on his feet, enjoying the holidays instead of being stuck in sickbed all day. No offense, Bones, but really, the least he could have done was decorate it.
Meanwhile, Kirk was blissfully unaware of Sulu's mutinous thoughts, who made his way over to the bed. McCoy moved aside so that Kirk could get closer, but he stayed within Hypo's sticking range in case the captain really did turn out to be insane. Not that he was ever completely there to begin with. Chekhov, too, had long since been suspecting that his captain had lost a few marbles, but when he rubbed his eyes free of sleepy dust and saw Kirk's attire, he figured that it wasn't going crazy. It was Ensign Chekhov.
Sir!
He asked in a soft, questioning voice, propping himself on his elbows. The navigator added, "Is something wrong?" "Wrong? On Christmas? Of course not!" Kirk yelled doubly, starting Chekhov a bit. "I just wanted to tell you. Well, what about I said last night? I was just tired or something. I didn't mean any of that. You know that, right?"
"Yes, sir,"
Chekhov answered obediently. "Good. And with that in mind, I would be very honored to be Ebenezer Scrooge in your play." That was when Sulu cleared his throat slightly and announced that, due to Chekhov's inability to participate, the crew had all agreed to cancel the play. "But just yesterday you agreed to go on without him," Kirk protested.
"Yes, well, but how do you know that?"
McCoy asked suspiciously. "Well, I'm the captain. I'm supposed to know these things."
"Yep, he's back to normal, all right,"
McCoy retorted with a snark. Kirk saw him with a nasty look, then directed his gaze to the Cirque Ensign, and asked if this was true or not. "I tried to convince them not to do it, but they would not." Packer nodded.
"I don't really think anyone's in the mood for a play this soon, Pav. Maybe next year."
"I'm sorry for ruining the play, Captain," Chekhov said, turning apologetic to his superior. "It was my fault. I was careless." Kirk didn't know whether to laugh or cry at a statement. It was so like Chekhov to blame everything for that he was just a wee bit involved in. But in the end, he did neither. He just placed a warm hand on Chekhov's shoulder, and he told him to concentrate on getting better as soon as possible.
"And I'm holding you to being Scrooge in next year's play, too,"
Bones added, snickering evilly. With a award-winning smile, Kirk replied, "I can't wait. Oh, and Ensign?"
"Yes, sir."
"Merry Christmas." Chekhov's smile was genuine, as he replied happily,
"Merry Christmas, sire."
And they had a Merry Christmas on board the Enterprise that year. Okay, so Chekhov would prefer not to be stuck in bed with eternal injuries and a busted leg. But that's life. And because Chekhov couldn't attend the main holiday in Rec Room 3, Kirk decided it was only sporting to drag some of the decorations into the sick bay and hold a special bridge crew party for the Navigator that day. Although McCoy cursed a lot when he heard of that plan, he really got to enjoying himself when Scotty produced a big bottle of Romulan ale. And so, as Chief Engineer Scott once observed, they had
"Not liberal at all."
Oh, come on. You didn't think I'd include that.
"Back to your corner!"
Well, these two fics, they're short, sweet, funny, and Christmassy. What more can I say? I mean, they're not sprawling epics, and they're not huge, big adventures, and they're just little, tiny, little, fun little stories. Although, for this fic, you are not going to be able to convince me that this was not Q behind all this. I mean, come on. This would be so cute. And I bet right now he was taking a video recording of everything. So that way, a century later, as Picard is resting in Captain's quarters, he hears, "Oh, John, oh, Jean-Luc, bonjour, mes amis."
"Q, what are you doing?"
"Oh, I just decided that it's time for me to spruce up your holidays."
"Spruce up my holidays? How? What are you planning?"
Oh, I decided to show you A Christmas Carol. I do not need to see it. I've already seen that movie at least 3 times on the vid console. I am going back to bed. Oh, no, 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 Captain. You see, this is a very special Christmas Carol. And that would be, it stars Willie Boy. It stars Jimmy Boy. Captain Kirk, you have A Christmas Carol. Sorry, Captain Kirk. Oh, yes. I think you might find it quite amusing. I don't think I will. I'm in a theater, aren't I? Yes. I'm going to see this whether I want to or not. Oh, yes, Mon Capitan. Now you just sit back, grab some popcorn, and we are going to enjoy. Well, at least this is better than that whole entire Torchwood movie you showed me. Hey, I happen to think that John Delancey is probably one of the most awesome people ever to exist. He is probably one of the best actors ever. Merry Christmas, Q. Why, thank you.